Good, guys. Let's make a start then, hey. So tonight we're going to talk about insight, and I thought I'll throw a proper term into the ether, which is called vidya. So this word vidya. So vidya is a Sanskrit word. So as you know, Buddhism has its roots in ancient India, and back in the days, Sanskrit was the language the people spoke where the Buddha, I think, maybe not. I was gonna say where the Buddha lived, but I don't know that. I'm not a. Anyway, it turns out the Buddhist scriptures were preserved mainly in Sanskrit, and the older ones also in Pali. So probably that means that Buddha did not speak Sanskrit. I don't know. Sorry, I'm getting myself already in a pickle, and I only just started. So this word vidya. So what is great about the Sanskrit word is there's something about Sanskrit that words always have several meanings, or it can really be helpful to have a Sanskrit word to kind of show the bigger meaning of that word. So vidya means to see. So I'm taking this this word to kind of help you to understand what insight might mean, because I think in English, you know, we kind of talk about insight, but it's kind of a bit of a term that we use quite loosely as well. You know, we kind of have, I don't know, it's not, I suppose it's not always used in a kind of quite profound way. Whilst when we think about vidya, it means to see. So we can think about insight as a seeing through. And so what we see through is, I mean, this is then the logic, I think, of the ancient Indian languages, is a vidya, so that which is not vidya. So just the letter A and then the same word. And A means always that which is not, it's kind of the negation. So, so we see through that which kind of, you know, holds us back from seeing through. So we could think of it, we see through delusion, we see through ignorance. And then an image that is used in Buddhism, which is, I think always images are always kind of a bit easier to understand, isn't it, than sometimes terms are. So an image that is used in one of the ancient, I suppose, graphic depictions of the Buddha's teaching, which is called the Tibetan Wheel of Life. This is represented by a blindfolded man. So it's actually someone who cannot see, but it's not like he cannot see because he's you know, he's been born blind. No, he's actually having an obstruction in front of his eyes. I think sometimes you actually see a picture of a man, you know, holding his hands in front of his eyes. So there's this element of that. There's kind of, I want to use the word willful, but it's not like we're doing it on purpose, but there is a kind of a bit of an active element in this ignorance. And an old Tibetan saying apparently goes something like, you cannot wake a man who is pretending to sleep. So this avidya, this ignorance, this delusion, has an aspect of a quality of willfulness, I suppose. So this seeing through, we think of like, okay, what is it then? You know, what is there to see? And one way the Buddha's teaching has been formulated is, you know, it's in what is called the 3 marks of existence. So you might have heard about these. Most likely you've heard of one of them, which is unsatisfactoriness. Often translated as suffering, but I think suffering is often a bit like a stage too far. I think often of this mark is a bit of the kind of, you know, the nagging feeling you can have about life. So the second one is insubstantiality, and the third one is impermanence. So talk a bit more about each three of them. So as well as marks of existence, there are also gateways to this, this thing called insight. I don't want to, I'm using thing in very big inverted commas because it is not a thing, but let's just label it like that at the moment. So this first mark, so all three become a gateway when we kind of start to look into them. And I think that is a really, I really like this teaching, this formulation of the Buddha's teaching, because it actually means when you pay attention close enough to something, actually, it becomes a doorway into, something a bit bigger. So the first one is unsatisfactoriness or suffering. I think we kind of all, when things are tough, we kind of feel that they're happening to us, don't they? It's a bit like when things are tough, when we're not happy, when we're struggling with things, we tend to kind of close down. It's happening to me. And although this might feel, how can I say, this might be tricky, I think the art is to kind of start noticing that it isn't just you who finds things tricky. I'm very good at thinking it is always just me, especially when I go around on things like social media or Instagram, where, there's like a world is presented of being completely, without any faults, isn't it? People have amazing gardens, have, sprinkly clean houses, and everything is perfect. That's the way that things are presented. And then for me, actually, things are difficult. How do I fit everything in my day? Kind of feelings. And I think it really helps to kind of become aware that this suffering, a sense of struggle, a sense of unease with how things are, is not just me. It is actually a universal experience. And so instead of thinking like, here I am separate with this, this struggle, or, even more extreme, I suppose, like real grief, pain, it's like, instead of feeling it's cutting me off, it's isolating me, it can actually become something that connects me with others. So if I start to turn towards my own suffering, it actually allows me to turn towards other people's suffering, and even further than that. I think there's how can I put it, a cultural, societal tendency to kind of to turn away from suffering. It's like, it's very hard to kind of just to stay with things that are difficult. And by doing that, we actually turn away from all the, from the distress that is happening out there. And I'm not just talking about human distress, I'm kind of also talking about environmental distress. So yeah, I think it's a bit like we lost contact with this, a sense that difficulty is part of the natural the natural order of things. It's part of the world we live in. Things are not perfect. I was just thinking when I was reflecting on this afternoon, I remember when my grandma died, and so my grandma was the first person close to me who died, and and it really, really threw me in a way that I never could have seen coming. But it also really made me feel connected to others, and I think I felt like part of the human race or something, because I had experienced this big loss now, and I think it's a bit like that. That's, I suppose, the territory I'm thinking about here, with staying with one's suffering and kind of using it as a gateway to feel connected. So then the second mark is impermanence, and I think we can think of it of like, oh yeah, things pass. Yeah, I get that things do not exist. But I think on a very fundamental level, we're just ignoring that. And it's been something really I've been struggling with during this pandemic, is there seems to be an attitude of death being an unnatural thing, I'm always kind of puzzled when the phrase is used, avoidable death, because humanity has 100% death rate. It's like you cannot. We kind of seem to, medical science is great, but we kind of also seem to be a bit caught up in trying to kind of endlessly extend life as if death is unnatural and death should be conquered. And I think on a smaller, smaller scale, maybe more day to day, we kind of see this as we're trying to live in the now, don't we? Like making the most of the now, when we tend to pack everything, pack our lives, chase things that we think could give meaning, make our lives as rich as possible. And I think especially in this past, year and a bit now that we've been in this, unusual situation of spending a lot more time at home, I've been noticing in my psyche that I've been like revisiting the past much, much more, rather because there's less input, there were less things that I could do. And I think naturally, I started to remember things and I started to kind of digest things. And I think this is a very, very important part. So impermanence does not mean that, you just kind of negate, everything that has happened in like, oh yeah, it's done now. I think there's a real element of impermanence, like by the very fact that things are impermanent, they have the possibility to become really meaningful. And but that kind of being meaningful is not something that kind of is gonna, I don't know, polish our ego or something. It's actually often quite humbling to the ego, but it's the things becoming meaningful on another level. And so I just leave impermanence there because a lot can be said about it. I just want to introduce then the last one, which is insubstantiality, and I think this might be a bit more, I don't know, a bit more vague, I suppose, for people, or a bit more, might need a bit more talking around. So the way into this one, so basically what it's saying, you might have heard as well, is this phrase of no fixed self. So that doesn't mean that there isn't anything, or no self, doesn't mean that like this, like in there's just a void or something. But I think what it's trying to get at is giving us the message that we only exists because there's all these other things supporting us to exist, and that goes from the very food you eat, the water you drink, the people you live with, it kind of everything kind of works to support our lives. And in that way, it's like we're very much connected with life. We're very much part of the world. And I think in a scientific way, like the number of human cells is less in a human body than the number of inhuman, non-human cells, which I think is really interesting. So we made up with a lot more non-human material. I don't know what, probably bacteria and all sorts of other stuff, than we are of human, and yet we kind of have this very defined sense of we are human, we are this entity over here and everything is over there. And I think a sense of alienation, this is a very modern thing, I think. I mean, not that I was around before. I mean, I could have been around, I can't quite remember. But I think it's, we kind of, especially since the Industrial Revolution, we've become further and further removed from the natural world, from how things, the cycles of the world, and from this kind of innate, I suppose, respect and relationship with our natural world. And instead we kind of started looking at things as that matter. Things are to be utilized, and resources are to be utilized rather than to be looked after. So this kind of, the gateway into this one, I think, comes from an imaginal connection with the world. It's kind of regaining that contact, that connection with the world, and also I think being at ease with yourself, because I think a lot of the feeling separated kind of, it creates anxiety, and we cannot relax into our own being, because there's all this, if you feel separate, there's kind of this thing that you need to defend, isn't it? Whilst if you kind of start to imaginally engage with the world in a way of feeling supported by it, you can relax. Yeah, so I'm running out of time already. So with these three things, so what I'm trying to, and this, what I've said might all be a little bit different from what you might read in books. But what I've been trying to, I suppose, communicate here is that insight is not a thinking process. It's not an intellectual understanding. Insight is not abstract. It's not something that is out there and you need to get to. Insight is actually a felt experience, and above all, it's an emotional experience. And I don't know emotional that we'll all start crying. I mean, one might cry, but it's coming from the heart. It's kind of, it's emotions instead of purely intellectual, I suppose. It's something one feels, one's experience. And often, I suppose I like to think of it as insight, as being this ability to soften into how things really are. So instead of fighting it, instead of kind of constantly having this tension with the fact that things are impermanent, and you try to, anxiously hold everything together, and you kind of anxiously try to hold this person safe, whatever that might mean. I think it's a phrase that has been used an awful lot over the past year: stay safe. I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? As if this virus is an enemy. It's like that virus just wants to survive, just like we do. Anyway, I can see also why people say, so don't get me wrong, I can see there's good intentions behind it. They want to wish you well, isn't it? But it's not like we're unsafe in the world, and I think that's maybe just where I want to end it. I think hopefully, I think things are going to start opening up now, and hopefully you'll get to see more people, connect with your friends, and hopefully you feel safe in this world. It's not an evil world. It's a world out there to support you, and you're part of it. So having said all that, I suggest we meditate a bit. So we're going to do the Metta Bhavana, and that's right, isn't it, Adesudi? I've already forgotten. So we're going to do the Metta Bhavana tonight. And the great thing about every teaching, every meditation, is that it has the potentiality to, how can I put it, to open up into insights, to open up into something much bigger. So let's just settle down. And start by tuning into your environment, where you are. Noticing where you're sitting, your seat, your cushion, floor, the ground, Just tuning into the earth below you, stretching out, supporting you, so you can give surrender your weight to the earth. Taking a few deeper breaths. Just bringing your attention to the top of your head, your crown. Allowing the crown to connect with the sky above. And there's a grounding of your lower body and activating of your upper body. Quite a gentle way, just an awareness. The energy arising from the bottom of your spine, all the way between your shoulder blades, the back of your neck, the base of your skull. Have a posture that is relaxed. Just take a few moments to tune into the city, you're sitting in your partner, maybe the countryside. Birds, the insects that are around, the flies, the mammals, the humans. Just taking a little moment to remember each other. And just maybe ask the question, so how would it be to feel supported by this world, these people, in our practice tonight? Just to these stages, metabargana, we're starting with getting a sense of where we are emotionally tonight. What's the landscape in our hearts? What does the heart look like tonight in this moment? I always find it quite supportive to imagine my breath wrapping around the heart, so the heart feels safe. The heart feels One way we can imagine metta as a constant turning towards whatever is there. It's patience, compassion, kindness. Things are a bit difficult, joy, things are easy going and joyful. Perhaps we can think of metta as a witnessing of the highest, purest. Maybe just thinking of a mirror, a completely clean mirror, just reflecting back patiently, without judgments, just as it is. So fully at ease with how we are at the moment. It's a warm acceptance, whatever is. Just reflecting, abiding with our experience. If the mirror is too harsh, maybe you can think of the way a pool reflects you. Eyes warming the water. And maybe we can go even further and just imagine how the whole world wants us to be well and happy. With well-wishing, not just us telling ourselves, but echoed by the whole world. May we be well, may we be completely at ease with ourselves. And I encourage you to invite a friend in this open space, with open hearts. And first, just allow your friend to be as they are in this moment. And again, metta is this quality of acceptance, abiding, quietly abiding with them, witnessing them. Maybe imagining them when you sit together on a bench in the woods. In a bench near a pond or a river. You're witnessing your friends, so is the rest of the world. Supporting your friend to be whoever they need to be. Without judgments, without the need to give them advice. We're just sitting and witnessing them. We can tune into perhaps a sense of well-wishing, of just really wanting them to feel they can be whoever they need to be, can be well and happy, feel supported by just perhaps notice your attention has gone a little bit too much towards them. Maybe you're a bit leaning forward in your posture. See if you can bring yourself back a tiny bit. Find a central axis in your own body. Perhaps reconnect with your lower body, your legs releasing down. And then allowing your attention, your well-wishing to flow free to your friend. And final stage, we're just gonna bring to mind, as well as our friends and ourselves, bring to mind the people who have made this Thursday night community, have been supporting us with their practice. well as maybe the people in our households that have been supporting us by being quiet as we meditate on a Thursday evening. And further in the street, the people you live with, you share the city with. If it gets a bit too abstract, maybe just bringing back to what we all share, the humanity we share, the worries, the joys, the dreams, the lives. Perhaps on a very basic level, the breathing we all share, not breathing the same air, or sleep under the same stars. Can relax into that. Be part of this human race, however imperfect it is just fine. It's bringing a lot of care to that. Just relaxing down into our own experience, into this breathing body, the breathing world. And in the final few moments, I just invite you to let go of any effort, any intention to your practice, and just tune into your environment, noticing where the world touches your body, where it enters your body to breathe in, and the cooler air touching your skin, the warmth of the evening sun rays. ringing a bell shortly, so you can bring your meditation to an end in your own time. So, if you have any questions or would like to share anything about your meditation with us tonight, or just an experience, a question you have about meditation practice, do feel free to put it in the chat. It'd be nice to hear. Be nice to get a sense of how you're getting on. Yeah, I think I was just reflecting now. This is how can I put it? This series was called Meditation for Life, and part of me kind of interprets that as, how to get better at living this human life in a kind of quite matter-of-fact way. But actually, there's something quite, there's an undercurrent of something a lot deeper, and I think that's really what we're trying to do. When we practice the Dharma, the Buddha's teaching, is actually getting a sense of that other thing. And it's like, yes, meditation can help you along, to maybe be a bit more calm, or I don't know. I don't know what else, but there's all these kind of medical benefits of meditations these days. But actually, we're trying to get to something a bit different as well. The kind of undercurrent of life, where we can go deeper. And I guess I'm just saying this because I hope you had a flavor of that through the weeks of us teaching. And I know when I wasn't teaching, I definitely, had that flavor from the others and the input they gave. So anyway, let us know how you got on. Be nice to you.
Thanks very much for that, Satyapara. We've got no questions as yet, but they're probably just deepening their insight after the meditation. I wondered if, as you say, that insight's really, really central, isn't it, in the Buddhist tradition, or a central sort of aim, as you said, you could say, of meditation. I wonder if you'd say anything about the extent to which insight is meditation is the domain of insight. Meditation is the practice within which one develops insight, or whether it's a broader.
I think it's broader, isn't it? It's not just meditation. I think, there's wisdom, meditation, and ethics, isn't it? That's another formulation of the Buddha's path. Buddha's teaching. So it's a quality of reflecting on your experience, but then as well the active elements in ethics and and then the kind of feedback loop, isn't it? I suppose they all kind of feedback into each other. But what I often think about meditation is that it's a bit like preparing the vehicle, preparing ourselves for when insight arises. I think one of my favorite quotes is something about, oh, don't worry about insight, it'll arise. What you need to worry about is, will you be ready for it? And I think it's a bit that, like, we need to kind of stabilize our experience, because I think most of the time we're kind of all quite volatile, and we don't have the space in our lives. You know, if something big happens to us, we kind of, you know, we just blown off track, aren't we? We're not prepared to kind of have, you know, like, I mean, this is maybe a bit negative, but, you know, we're not prepared to deal with death right in our face, isn't it? It's like that kind of, it's like a wake-up call or something, and it's a bit about like preparing ourselves to see. I think the seeing through happens, but we're not seeing it that it's happening, because, you know, we don't have space, we don't have the kind of the capacity to see. Yeah, so I think from that perspective, I think meditation is very important to just prepare the ground, stabilize ourselves, create a space. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Chapra. I like what you say. I think I'm remembering something for me, that with insight, the idea of insight, can both sound quite sort of exciting. There's something quite, oh God, insight. There's something quite, yeah, kind of exciting. Exciting's not quite the right word, is it? But it really sort of captures your imagination that actually you're not seeing things as they are, and you could be. I also used to find it a little bit scary. The notion of insight, something sort of disruptive that overturns your whole way of seeing the world. So I wondered if you had anything to share on that. Have you any experience of of either of those sides, you know, in your actual experience?
I think when I was first coming along to the Buddhist Centre back in Belgium again, I thought it was really cool, but I was very young as well, so yeah, but I think the idea of it being a bit scary, I think that this is hacking up. Well, I once heard someone describe insight as a bit of like you're always looking from, I don't know, say a 45% angle at life, and then suddenly you're going to change to, I don't know what, 180%, you know, like you kind of change your angle on life. And I thought that was quite a radical thing to say. And it's like, oh, how do you do that? But then I think on the other hand also, and I truly believe that we all have insights. I mean, maybe not the capital I one, maybe we do, but we all have experiences of that kind of, you know, suddenly, you know, something opens up, or suddenly we understand something, or we kind of see something about ourselves. And yeah, I think I had this on a retreat, on a long meditation retreat once, where I just, you know, I opened my eyes after a meditation, and I looked at the person opposite to me, and I had this genuine kind of experience of like not quite knowing, you know, she was sitting in the exact same posture as I was, and this kind of confusion suddenly around who am I and who is she? I mean, really, when I'm describing now, it sounds a bit ludicrous, but it was this kind of quite like a moment of confusion of like, what was that? You know? And I think it's like, oh yeah, these are the little moments, but then you forget because, you know, the habit is so strong. So. Can I unmute you? No.
So there's we're running towards the end of the class, but there's a question come through from Brenda. Interesting question, I think, about, well, sort of in the area of how do you know it's insight, talking about sort of not having anything beyond myself to validate what I think, feel is true, or reality. So I guess, yeah, there's a question there about how do we know it's insight. You know, we might have an insight, but do we know it's reality, or is it could it be unreality?
Well, I think if just going back to you know, these marks of existence that I was talking about earlier, I think one important one is a sense of like, do you feel like closer to the world? You know, does it kind of feel, has something opened up, has something relaxed, is something I mean, this might sound a bit, I don't know, I mean, it's a bit vague as well, isn't it? Because I mean, I'm sitting here, but obviously I haven't gained insight. At the city might. But you know, it's a bit, so we're kind of talking about something that we don't really know much about. So, but I think so. I suppose one way I often think about is if it feels a bit threatening to the ego, it's probably moving in the right direction. You know, it's kind of when you're kind of loosening this kind of boundary, you know, this kind of fixed view of yourself, this fixed way of being all the time. I think another example, which, you know, it's like when you kind of know you're on retreat, you're kind of doing good work. It's like when you suddenly start to notice your strong habits. They often come around food, I think, on a lot of retreats, because you don't have much else to focus on. So then you start developing these habits around food, and then you kind of start noticing them. And I think it's those things that you kind of, when you start seeing, when you start seeing the self, you know, I think these are the moments. Yeah. Anyway, you ain't got any thoughts on that, City?
No, I think that's very good. I think, yeah, you have to see how much you don't have insight in order to be able to get a sense of what insight is, don't you? And I think, as you say, the marks of conditioned existence, well, inevitably we won't know when we have an experience what it is, but actually we can refer back to the Buddha's articulation of what insight is, because it's insight into reality. There's not many realities. So insight does have sort of common characteristics, even if it's individual. Yeah.
I think the other thing is things are always as they are. They are always reality. It's just, you know, just going back to the image of the blindfolded man. It's like we're doing this, but it's still reality, you know.
Great, thanks, Satyapara. We're running close to the end of the class. Yeah, but thank you very much for that last look at the possibilities of meditation for life. So yeah, just to say to everybody, thanks all of you for coming, participating in meditation night, making meditation night what it is. Very good to have you here. Yeah, thanks very much, Brenda, particularly sort of expressing her appreciation for us making meditation night down this end, what it is. Yeah, and as you heard, we're going to be how are we putting it? We're going to be taking a break. That's right, from meditation night. Well, actually, it's not quite true. We're going to be going in person, and also we're going to be recording those in-person sessions. So if you're not able to make it in person, that's fine. We'll put the classes on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, so you'll still be able to access them. They'll be premiered, I think, a week later, won't they? So we'll miss a week, and then you'll have you'll be able to catch up each week on a Thursday night with us in meditation night. Yeah, and then we'll be starting with a fresh 6-week challenge in September. And we're moving towards hybrid, so just in case you're not able to make it, we're moving towards hybrid, but we just need a bit of time to turn that around. And the last thing I'll mention second to last thing I'll mention is the weekend. So we've got the relaunch day tomorrow. We've got a big weekend where we're welcoming. Sorry, I keep thinking it's Friday today. It's not, is it? We've got the relaunch weekend on Saturday. So come along. There's lots on. Liz has just put in the programme link in the chat box, and then on Sunday we've got Dharma Day. Dharma Day being the teaching of the Buddha, so celebrating the first turning of the wheel, which is a mythic expression. Vidyasaki is going to be giving a talk on both days, actually. So you're very welcome to come along. You're in a way you're slightly more on the deep end, but if you like being in the deep end on Sunday, that is slightly more on the deep end, then come and jump in. And the last thing I'll mention, as we always do, is dana. So we mention this every class actually now. It's not to wear you down. It's because it's intrinsic to what we do, actually. It's the spirit in which we give classes, so all these classes are freely given. But we want to create a sort of environment where you can try out giving to someone else and expecting nothing in return. That's the invitation of the Buddha. It's the basis of meditation. It's an expression of metta. So that's really what we're trying to do, create an environment where you can try that out. And you need an environment where you can trust people to do that, because there's often at a certain level a question whether you're going to be taken advantage of. So that's what we're trying to do, create an environment where we can just give without looking for something in return. So if and when you want to do that, if you trust us, then that's what we're trying to do, and you can participate in that. And in doing that, we create something new, something quite radical, which we call the Dharma economy, an economy based on generosity. So that's what we've moved into at the Buddhist Centre. Anyway, that's why we mention it every class. So yeah, as I say, lovely to have you all with us, and look forward to seeing you either online or in person in the future. Bye bye from us.